Okay, so we're now recording. So good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 25th Paparelli Zoom chat for entrepreneurs, and thank you all for coming. I appreciate you all. We're all about entrepreneurs helping entrepreneurs. And last week, we had a great discussion with Rob Foreman, who is the co-founder and the president of Sales Loft. And we were talking about moving from co-founder to leader. And Rob did that, and it was an amazing story. And one of the insights I picked up from that was when you start a company from scratch, and that's sort of my business, is catching people real early. He said, I love what he said. He says, there's really only two jobs in the company. One job is to create, and the other job is sell. And that's it. And I love that simple statement because that is it. There is no organization. There are two people and they got to do two different tasks. And him and Kyle did a great job at that, obviously, because look where they are today. That was one of my insights that I picked up. And every week, there's always some great ideas and insights that come out of these conversations with these great entrepreneurs that we're fortunate enough to have join us. But so what I always say is together, we actually are stronger. We use the Zoom chat feature that you see here for questions. John Marshall is going to be monitoring the chat for us, and he'll jump in from time to time with your question if it's appropriate for the conversation that I'm having at the time with Chris today. If not, he's going to hold the question so that when we get to, when we finish the conversation with, when I finish the conversation with Chris, which will be at 9:45, we'll have 15 minutes of Q&A, and John Marshall's going to facilitate that, and he'll call on you based on your question in the chat so that you personally can ask Chris that your own question. That's how we do it here. So we wrap it up at 9:45, the conversation, and at 10 o'clock, we'll wrap up the call. Today's topic is leading in a revenue crisis. I always say the entrepreneur's thought of the day from the Bible is this king, the follow-on king to Nebuchadnezzar, who was the king of Babylon, speaking to this remnant of Jews that were in Babylon. And he said, whoever there is among you of all his people, may his God be with him. Let him go up to Jerusalem, which is in Judah, and rebuild the house of the Lord, the God of Israel. He is the God who is in Jerusalem. And the application I see for this is there is always a remnant in very difficult times, in times of crisis. There's always a remnant, those key people who believe they will rebuild the business bigger and better than it ever was before the crisis. I see these people as a group that is supernaturally inspired, and we're going to hear about that a little today. I do lead a Bible study on Thursdays from 12 to 1. If you're interested in attending, just send me an email to charlie@paparelli.com, and I will add you to the invite list. But let's get started today. I read a story yesterday in the Wall Street Journal, and it was about Airbnb. And they quoted Brian Chesky, who was the CEO of Airbnb. And what he said was, I didn't know that I would make 10 years worth of decisions in 10 weeks. His market completely disappeared. No one was traveling anymore. And we all know Airbnb. Countries were locked down. Flights were canceled. You couldn't get anywhere. Most of his inventory that he had built over these many, many years became worthless. It was a what now kind of moment that he had to ask himself. And he did make 10 years worth of decisions in 10 weeks. One of those was, selling, $1.2 billion worth of new stock to an investor to kind of make sure he had the cash flow to carry him through. And this crisis that we've been through in this COVID-19 crisis that we've been through happened to Chris Carneal in a really big way. I met Chris through a close friend in our Christian business community when I walked into his reception area over 5 years ago. There's like colorful banners everywhere, people walking quickly. There was youth was all over, smiles. Everybody was so nice to me. Oh no, we're so glad that you're here at Booster. There were Razor scooters just parked at the door to get you around the 20,000 plus square feet of headquarters that he actually had. The place was just jumping. It was popping. And then Chris comes out to get me, and it was like he was welcoming his long lost best friend ever. And I never met him before. His enthusiasm, his love of people, his energy. He showed me right then and there who's setting the culture in this place called Booster. And Chris Carneal built this business from scratch. And he built it into a $90+ million revenue business that was very profitable. And what he did was he was selling, he was helping elementary schools nationwide raise more money effectively using fund runs. Pretty simple process, but he saw that there very early on that they were, and we're going to hear about this, the problem that he saw. And he had a completely distributed workforce because he was selling nationally, which is a very complex model with very high barriers to entry. He built an incredible brand. In fact, he was number one in his, he still is number one in his marketplace. But one day in March, the market disappeared. It literally disappeared. As we know, elementary schools weren't holding classes anymore in person, never mind fun runs. So what would you do is the question that comes out here. So Chris, thanks for joining us today to talk about leading in a revenue crisis. You know, I really appreciate, if you would unmute, I'd appreciate that.
Charlie, thanks for your time. Thanks for letting me be part of this. Thanks for the best intro you've ever given.
Really? You always get great intros because you're a great leader. But before we get started, Chris, I just want to recognize the difficulty of this conversation. This is, you are a very, very positive leader. Okay. And in fact, when I've gone certain places with you, you know, you've kind of, like I say, you deflect it, you know, and you make it back to the positive again, which is great, you know, but the more you're actually willing to share on this call, you know, the more beneficial it's going to be. This conversation is going to be to the entrepreneurs that are attending that we're really looking to help, because there's other people that have gone through just what you're going through. And if they haven't yet, they will. Maybe you won't have a whole market meltdown, but we all have those, like, oh, we have to have those sort of anchor tenant type clients. And then we're relying on them and serving them, and it's going great. And one day, boom, they change their mind and they're gone. And, you know, 40% of our revenue goes away. And those kind of things will happen to people, obviously. So I'm very sensitive to how difficult this might be for you. And I appreciate you doing this. You know, when we talked, you made a comment, you said, I'm not ready to talk about this yet. And we put it out so far, and then today showed up. So here you are. So maybe you could tell us your story about how you started Booster.
Yeah, you said something last time, 4 or 5 months ago, of, you know, come on the show in a few weeks and talk about the comeback. And I said, we're nowhere near that. We're struggling to survive. I think we will survive, but as a true entrepreneur knows, I've said the phrase many times, pre-March 13th, that it could all be gone tomorrow, right? We say that in theory. I lived it the last 7 months. By God's grace, we're still alive and we're still fighting. Hey, can I read real quick? You just talked about it. And before I give the context I'm reading through, many of you have heard it, of course, the story of Nehemiah building the wall, Old Testament. But Nehemiah 4, this is cool. This is my morning reading. Just so if there's anything that encourages you all, entrepreneurs, maybe this is for you today. Each of the builders, all the context, they're building the wall back. They're rebuilding the wall. It was built for lots of reasons. It crumbled, and it was time for a vision to rebuild. And then Nehemiah 4:18, each of the builders had his sword strapped at his side while he built. And then it goes on to say, you know, our God will fight for us. And I had just missed that in the times in the past that I'd read that even when we're building, it's a battle, it's war. We're being attacked on different sides, and we might have a brick in one hand or blueprints in one hand, but we better have the sword in in the other hand, are on our ways to be ready to fight. And that's what the last 7 months has felt like, for sure, a fight for our lives. In context, family health and faith are great, but man, for me as a founder, starter from dorm room, 18 years old, what I felt like, I've used this language many times, that Booster is my firstborn child. And people scratch their heads, and if I see some glazed look.
Tell us that story on how that, so that we, again, like a level set here again. Tell us the story on how Booster got started.
Sure. So, grew up in South Florida, moved to Sanford University to play a little baseball. Go Braves. I'm a big Braves fan and have been growing up. Great win last night. Played a little college baseball, realized that, I'm not as great as I wanted to be. I wanted to be John Smoltz, and I'm not, but good enough to play in college a little bit. Finished my baseball career and started doing baseball lessons for kids. That was my first. I've always been entrepreneurial and started different things, but that was my first, like, wait a minute, I can use a skill set that I enjoy, that impacts people, makes a difference, and I can charge for it. This is it.
Wow.
I was a religion major.
I've never heard this part of the story. This is great. Go ahead.
Religion major at the time. I wanted to change the world like every good millennial. So I thought I'd move back to South Florida and start a church. That was my plan, because the church, the nonprofit, those are the world changers, and the business guys are cool and awesome, and they fund these people. But I was kind of torn, because I wanted to change the world, but all of a sudden I was, excited about entrepreneurship. I've always done startup things. The idea of the blank canvas, the whiteboard, to me was so much more exciting than taking something that already existed, ex nihilo, just the idea of creating something.
Come from all that.
Say it again, Charlie.
So where did Booster come from?
Yep. So I'm doing baseball lessons one day, and that started to grow into a business of sorts as a college student. And then one day, one of the kids I was giving lessons to, I was teaching him, here's how you pitch, and here's some mechanics and tips. He said, before our lesson starts, can you buy some magazines and wrapping paper for my school fundraiser? Does this ring a bell? You remember this? Either as
we all remember it.
There you go. And you kind of hated it, whether it's you or your kids, but schools needed the funds. So I picked up the phone. I said, look, I'm in college. I don't need wrapping paper. Who needs wrapping paper? Go to Walmart, buy wrapping paper if you need it. So I called my mom, the college educator, grew up in an educator's household. Then I called my dad, who was the Booster Club president of the private school I went to. So he was used to raising money. My mom was an educator, talked to them, and they said, look, schools do all kinds of product sales. They sell products to raise funds. That's the model. But when I was a kid, my dad, the Booster Club president, and our PE department hosted this fun run, and they organized it. And, as a kid, you think, this is awesome. This is so much fun. So I called him and said, why is this school that the kid I'm giving the baseball lesson to, why are they selling products? Everyone does that. Why don't they do fun runs? Like, you know how much it sounds easy. It's so much work, man. And then my dad, just the affirming, encouraging vision word of a father, which I hope we all are in many ways, to others, metaphorically. Hey, I'll bet schools would pay you to help them organize fun runs. And that's all I needed. Just that idea that, wow, I could see myself doing that for schools.
How long did it take to get to that first fun run?
It took me 50 no's from meetings to, I'm a college kid. Hey, trust me with your kids and your money. I got an idea. Your school budget, it works in my head, but cancel your stuff you've done for 25 years and kids are going to run in a circle. And
look how young you look now. I can't imagine what you looked like when you were 21.
Yeah, I was yes, inexperienced with a lot of hyperactivity and enthusiasm and excitement. Finally got one school to say yes. That's a long story, but I had to guarantee them my honeymoon money. My honeymoon was coming up in a few months. So I said, of course I'll guarantee. There's always that moment you got to put your money where your mouth is. And I said, of course, I'll guarantee you $3,000. And that was a huge deal for this 21-year-old.
That's great.
In 2002. And the school profited $21,000. We were kind of off to the races.
But of the 21,000, 3,000 was yours.
That's right.
No, I know you didn't give it to them. But
that was the first moment. Yeah.
Right. So that's how that was sort of, your father gives you this idea, you embrace it, you do it, and off you go. 50 no's and you get the one yes and you're in business. tell us how much money. I remember when I visited you, I was sitting in your office and there was one of those big screens that like the Times Square type screen that shows how much money you have raised since the inception of Booster.
Yeah, the ticker. I've always wanted a ticker. CNBC, the bottom line, it's ticking. I want it to be client-centric. I want people to walk in our office and see school profit, not our revenue, not expenses.
Yeah. Right.
Just how much money has gone to schools in the country. And it was 345 million. And then it stopped on March the 13th. It didn't start ticking again until about 6 weeks ago. So about
What
300.
happened so where were you? Where was the business, just to help us understand before we get into a deeper conversation here on this transition, this crisis you got into? Where was the business in January of this year? Tell me what it looked like.
Well, our executive leadership team was about to finish up a $83 million year and planning for a $100 million year next year. There was an outside chance that this school year, July 1 is our fiscal year, was going to be a $100 million revenue year.
Whoa.
And a whole lot more than that for school profit. About 4,000, 4,500 schools nationwide. We had almost 1,000 team members, a couple sister companies. And so
these 1,000 team members, they were all over the United States. I mean, how many people did you have at like headquarters here in Atlanta?
Yeah, about 200-ish between our superior company and our tech team. And the other 80% are in the field.
Okay.
Serving school, we serve schools in every state. They live in about 35 different states.
Did you have any
great.
advisors? Do you have an advisory board too? Is that how
I do. Our friend Bob Lewis is on it. I've got a great advisory board. Cheryl Batchelder, former CEO of Popeyes, Chuck Bengachia, Jack Alexander. Yeah, incredible advisory.
You're the sole owner of the business.
That's right. Yep.
Shareholder of the business. Okay, great.
Right.
So you were teed up to achieve what you thought was going to be $100 million a year.
Yes. And there's been many years we've been a nonprofit, not by choice, but this was the year we finally figured out some efficiencies. Growth is expensive. And you know that, you hear that, but it's just tough to take any money out of the company or really be profitable when clients are calling in another state and they want to have 30 programs and we're growing. So we've been growing 25 to 35% a year the last decade or so. I mean, from college dorm, first 5 years were kind of crazy. And then, I've been in Atlanta now 15 years and we've grown at least 25 to 30% a year.
Is this so it's 15 years since that first sale?
18. Yep.
18 years since that first sale. Okay. That was something that I wasn't sure of when you actually got started. So you told me that you were on this Zoom call. What was it, March 3rd? On this last Zoom call that you were on, you made a comment. You weren't the fellow that I was actually interviewed, but you jumped in, you made some comment. You said, let me tell you, I went from a forecast of, what was your of?
Yeah, 100 million was the hope forecast stretch goal for this year.
And it went to zero on March, 13th, you said?
March the 13th. Yep.
March the 13th.
So school events, the two things in America that have been primarily shut down. We do school events. Students run laps and we put on the tent in the tunnel and come outside and it's awesome and it's physical fitness and character lessons. No events, no gatherings, and schools are closed and kids are home. So
tell us about that day. Go back to that day. You're the CEO, you're the founder. You've got expectations up here. Boom, you hit the floor. Look, what's that? Tell us what that day was for you.
I'm a optimistic ENFP Enneagram 7. So going backwards to negative emotions I have to really think through how to do it. So the last week of February, I asked my CFO to put together, just in case, I'm a positive guy, but this is crazy. The entire country of Japan just closed all schools. If that were to happen in America, what would it do to our model?
You did that at the end of February?
That was the last week of February. Japan closed. Okay. They were the first, modern nation that we knew of to close schools. I mean, the virus conversation was going, but the idea of lockdown and school closures had not happened, at the time. So he put that together. He said, if we lose April's revenue, we're going to lose $7 million. And that stinks. We could trim some costs, but that's if we lost a month. That's if this crazy idea that schools would be closed for a month, but that's never going to happen. And that's my CFO's an Enneagram 6. His job is to think about worst case scenarios, right? And he there's no way that would happen. But okay, here's your.
He'd make a great angel investor in the future in case he's ever interested in that.
I'll let him know. So it started to build. A couple states started to announce first in early March. West Coast, Washington State, Northern California, cities, districts.
But give me just a second. Go back to that $7 million. He told you you'd lose $7 million if you didn't have the revenue in April. What was your thought when you heard that?
Well, that's terrible, but that's probably not going to happen.
Okay.
But we can survive, and we've survived lots of challenges before, but never a closure. But I said, just do the model, because if that's the worst case scenario, then great. It's only a state or two. It's only $1 million, or it's only a district, or it's not. It's only a week
I see
or
what
two.
you're saying. Okay.
So that was Japan closed schools. What if that happened for us for a month? And then this was the first.
But your reaction was, that won't really happen that way. Like everything gets closed down.
Yeah, I'm an optimist, and it's never happened before. I can look at the data. American schools don't close. For any reason. Even if it's snow, you're out for 3 days. If it's flu season, this is unprecedented in American history.
Right, I get it.
That schools that we don't educate the next generation. Don't get me started. Again, I'm a son of an educator, so I'm seeing this from all angles. But that was the first of 5 times that our worst case scenario became our best case scenario. 5 times in a row. What if there's no way? That's the worst case scenario.
What do you mean 5 times in a row? I'm not following you.
Schools would be closed for a month.
Okay.
There's no way that would happen. And then a month later, our best case scenario was that schools were only closed for April. Then we said, what if they're closed another month? That would be the worst case scenario.
Oh, I see. Okay.
March and April. And then that was the best. And then what if they're closed the entire spring? Right. And we thought that there's no way the school year is going to get extended. What if the entire country is closed all spring? So what we finally did, our advisory board said, you're optimistic. That's great for entrepreneurs, but build a model that's pessimistic. You don't have to change who you are. You'll rebound, you'll rebuild, but a blind spot in your culture could be that if the worst pandemic happens, you have not planned a business model that accounts for the worst. So we kept having this, optimistic, medium, worst case scenario. And that worst case scenario kept becoming our best case scenario. 5 times in a row. So the whipsaw, seasickness, roller coaster, stomach feeling,
was that happening? Did that happen within a 30-day period?
Every 30 days.
Every 30 days. Okay.
At first it was a week, and then it was 3 weeks, and then it was the month of March, the month of April, the whole spring. Schools in the Northeast go through June. That's closed. So we built the model. We furloughed. We were too small to get bailouts, and we're too big to get PPP. So we have had 0 financial assistance of any sort. So we lost basically.
You made some comment about that you furloughed. How long did it? I know that we kind of talked for a while during that period, and I talked to other people who know you, and it's not like you said, "Oh yeah, here's what could happen, so we're just going to do a furlough." I mean, you were the last time I talked to you, you said, "I am calling every single one personally, every single one of my team members across the country." That's where we left off. So there were no furloughs coming out of your mouth at that time.
No, we were still optimistic. We're a service business, and without people, we can't serve our clients. So we thought, we're going to keep the culture is what I live and breathe. This is my mission. I love these people. I don't want them to emotionally disengage. If there's a chance we can serve schools at all this spring, and spring's different in different parts of the country, let's stay open. But then once we realized spring is done, the fall is when schools will resume, and there was in different states some financial assistance. We thought the best move to preserve cash, we have to save some cash just in case the fall is not robust or back to normal. So that was the 5th time, July the 17th, when we woke up at 5 a.m. to text from all over the country, this district closed, this state's closed, this, and what they were announcing was the fall is going to be digital or virtual or hybrid. So that again was another worst case. Man, we lost $20 million in spring revenue. But
Jeez.
that's okay. We have the summer and we're going to be ready for the fall. But on July the 17th, we realized our fall is going to be a bloodbath as well.
So here you are holding on to your employees, your do you call them team members? Is that what you
Team
call them?
members.
Team
Yep.
members, yeah. You're holding on to these team members through April, through May, through June, and revenue is literally zero?
Zero. Yep. I mean,
Zero.
a little AR and a few booking fees, and our t-shirt company was selling a little bit, but
What was the
less than 1%.
Okay, so what was happening? What was the discussion that was going on between you and your executive team and you and your advisors during that 90-day period?
Well, and from
Because
March
you are
13th,
that optimistic. They're gonna come back online. I could just hear you, they're gonna come back online. This can't happen.
yeah, 173 days of no revenue. That was the streak. And I'd update it on the whiteboard every day. And then I had it, finally when the fall looked bad, every day, how much cash do we have in the bank? How many days is that? And it got down to, we have 42 days left. We're at day 173 with 42 days left. So yeah, what I bet on then, and I've been wrong in my timing, but I bet, and I'm still betting on it, is that schools will eventually reopen. And when they do, unfortunately, in some ways, but it's an opportunity, they need more money than ever before because their budgets are getting cut tremendously. So they will need our services. We'll be leaner and meaner, but we've got to survive until the market opens. And that's then the most frustrating thing.
Yeah, but what happened?
We didn't make many strategic missteps. Our entire market just got completely shut down.
Exactly, right. It's sort of like you truly are a victim here, okay? I get that. But what were the discussions during that 90-day period? I want to go back to that question as the founder, as the CEO, it's all on your shoulders, but you're surrounded by some great advisors, okay?
Yep.
And you built a great executive team that you're working with. How are those discussions going, during that period of time? Zero revenue, month to month, 173 days of no revenue.
Yeah, terrible. We hated it. I mean, every day we Zoomed for probably 2 weeks, but our executive team was in the office in person most of the time just because we needed to do it. But our external advisory board is awesome, but our internal team, Steven, my right-hand man, the president and COO, they say crisis reveals character. I mean, our executive team just took it to the next level. I mean, we just saw the best of the best, saw their character come out. What
does that look like? Why do you come to that conclusion? I don't understand. What did you see?
Clarity of mission, commitment to the long term, care for our people, our virtues. We don't have values, we have virtues. All of our 6 virtues, you could just see those character traits come out in people. They were the best of themselves, and that was what we hoped for and prayed for. And
was there a disagreement in the decisions and how quickly they need to be implemented? And I'm talking crisis type decisions between the advisory board and the executive team.
Not much. They gave us some nudges with their experience. I mean, our advisory board, again, Fortune 500 CEOs, really much better than we deserve in many ways, just some long-term relationships. And because they've been through more crisis for more years and they're sit on so many boards, they were able to see, Chris, you're an optimist. Your financial projections are still too optimistic.
Okay.
Hope for it, but don't plan your business model. And I needed that nudge from them. Because
it took you time to really kind of take that on personally. I mean, you're hearing it, but you're not doing anything about it at that point.
Well, when you're burning 100,000 a day, you don't really need anybody to get your attention when those checks stop coming in.
But the other side I know the money is important, but the other side is how dedicated you are to your team members.
Yep. That was the worst.
Stuck in the middle here. Yeah, I know I'm losing this kind of money in the market and I'm optimistic market's going to turn. I can't let these people go.
Yep.
They're my people,
These aren't just, they're not, they're friends, they're family. They're like, I mean, they're neighbors. So no, July, we said this is in case of emergency, break glass. We set a goal in June. If we don't have a Q1 number of clients, that's the number. All right, let's be objective. Does everybody agree on that number? That's the number. So the emotions are going to, 300 clients in Q1. Oh, we're at 175. with 3 days to go, 190, we're not going to add 110. Okay, it's time to restructure and resize. We just had to do it for the sake of the sustainability of the company.
So tell me more about you said, so that was you finally came to agreement, your executive team and the board, okay,
Yep.
said, here's the bar. If we don't hit this,
Yep.
we're going to take this action.
Yep.
And
because we're not the size we thought we were, and we have
right.
to come to grips with it. And
what were the discussions like for the what were the discussions like during the 173 days of no revenue? What were the discussions like with the people in the field? What was actually going on in their minds, and what were they saying?
So Stephen and I would every week, I heard this from many people, it's my bias, but I've never heard any leader in a time of crisis communicate too much. People want more communication. They want to see your face. They want presence. So we said, all right, here's what we're going to do. We used to do a once a year state of the nation where it's Stephen and I talking for an hour on here, here's where we are as a company. And then we have lots of meetings throughout the year, but we said, we're going to do a once a week live broadcast starting in the home office, went to my basement for a while, for a month, and went back. I'm going to stand in front of the screen. I'm going to give you an update. We're going to be truthful. We're going to be transparent. We're going to get through it together. But then after we're done talking, you can ask any question you want. So it started with 850 employees, and we ended up with about 150 when it was all over. But we're just going to stand here in the middle of the room. We're going to look you in the eye, and we're going to answer any question you have. And I think that transparency built trust, even if it was bad news and people aren't used to me.
So you don't think that because you were communicating so frequently, you don't feel like, you think that you cut off a lot of what I'll call is that negative back chatter, that's out in the field, if you will. You know what I'm talking about?
Well, this is crazy stat. Our Glassdoor rating went from a 3.9 to a 4.3 over the summer when we were furloughing and letting people go. One, there's a whole lot more people unfortunately to give reviews, but we just said, we're going to be truthful. And I think everyone saw that this is, I don't like the word victim at all, but that this in some ways happened to us against our strategy or plan. And, I think they felt sad and sorry for what was lost, in the path we were all on. So looking people in the eye and over communicating. And we said, look, if, you want your spouse to hop on, you got a roommate, we're just going to be truthful. And here we are. And, to be honest, not to be too political, but there's so many crises going on in America right now. I was at the time, and still am, so frustrated with the lack of clarity and truthfulness in the American dialogue. I thought all I need to do is pretty much the opposite of what I see on TV. and just be humble and express empathy and stand in the room and answer every question, and then have one-on-one calls afterwards, and FaceTimed every team, text every team member, called as many people as I could, wrote notes. I'm still in the middle right now of writing notes to every team member that was with us 5 years or more that we had to let go. So, you could still care for people as much as you can. There's some people that don't like me, but that's part of it. But on July the 17th, Stephen and I, when we said this is it, we made a list of the longest tenured team members and the ones who were in Atlanta, and we drove all over the city to find they were home. We sat on their couches, cried with them. I remember a good friend of mine, I played softball with him, worked with me for a decade. I had to sit in his couch while his 2-year-old crawled on the floor. I had to cry with him. I prayed with him. Hey, unfortunately, I just have to let you go, and I want to do it in person. I want to look you in the eye. I want to tell you I'm grateful for you, but we just have to resize. Back to what I said.
Just a quick, if you can give me a quick story around how did you come to the decisions on who to keep and who to let go beyond how long that, people's tenure, how long they've been on board? You follow me? Because I know that sometimes that's not just the simple driver that you can use. Well,
this sounds basic now, but if you're a feeler who, is friends with people, these are very tough. They're tough decisions for anybody and everybody, but these are like people I hired out of college.
I know for you how particularly difficult this was. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been to their weddings. They met their spouses at Booster. It's like, these are like family members in many ways. So we just said, one, Booster's 18. Okay. It's the son that was driving to college and got in a car wreck. Okay. We cannot let boost or die. That's the non-negotiable. I can be nice and we're out of business in 3 months. And that's great. You got paid for a few months more, but we're dead. And what that represents is the future mission, the future team members, the future culture. So I had to lock in, dead set on the future. The future at some point, if we survive, it will be bright, right? Strength for today and hope for tomorrow. So I got to hope for tomorrow and pray the Lord gives us the opportunity to get there. But at the same time, I can't sacrifice tomorrow for the sake of today. So we said, what's the size, what's the cost of payroll, one, and what's the size company we need to service our clients? So we had to balance cash, culture, and clients, the 3 C's I keep coming back to, the tension that exists between those 3. And there's no easy answers, but there was one Sunday night, I got away to the mountains with my wife for a day, cried, finally kind of, let the pressure go. She is a counselor in many ways and kind of got it all out of me. I've been holding it in and, felt like I was drowning, and that's a whole nother long story. And then that Sunday night, came back from 24 hours away. We went to the office. We said, all right.
Could you talk a little bit, we're running short of time, but that is a very important story to the people that dial into this, So what was that like? Because that's a question I did have, is so what happened? How did this, what was the discussions between you and your wife? I mean, you're in effect co-founders. I mean, she was there from the beginning. She's as emotionally involved in this business as you are. And she went to all the weddings with you.
Yep. Okay. Yep. Well, I was going to say, let me finish real quick. That night, went to the office and we said, it's 8:00 at night on Sunday. We're not leaving until we have clarity on who we're keeping and who we're not, because we're making phone calls tomorrow morning. And I said, I want to not just see the names, I want to see the faces. So I had our HR team put pictures of every team member we would keep or have to let go on the screen. I wanted to see the faces of the people. I wanted to humanize it all. We had to have the numbers, and I wanted to balance that with the humanization of these are real people and good friends. So, no, God.
What was can you give me sort of what your wife's take on all this was?
Well, we had, at this point, had been through it for 150 days or so. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur. My kids know that this is how life goes. And so I came home and, you never know how to, we have 4 kids from 15 down to 7. So I wanted to use this as an opportunity to bring them into the conversation of life and trusting God and entrepreneurship and capitalism. And, it's a family business. So, there's, for us, there's not much of a distinction between business and home, at least in a healthy way. I mean, friends, employees, it's all kind of mixed. So they've been part of the conversation from day one. I mean, we started every school day, on our knees, praying for the company, praying for our team members as a family. I mean, my kids would, cry and how's booster. And we had to realize how much do we tell? This is not their weight to bear, but at the same time, we want to expose them to, to real life. So that was a interesting parenting moment. But my wife's support, I mean, God gave her to me, who she is in personality and wiring. She knows she's married an entrepreneur, and she is steady and consistent and dedicated. And she knows what's going on inside of me better than I do. I'm thinking about the future. She's like, yeah, but inside you, you're sad or frustrated or something. And I don't even know it, but she gets it out of me at the right time. And that trip to North Carolina was that was a moment. We literally climbed a mountain. And I thought, this is it. I'm going to get to the top of the mountain. I'm going to look out. We're going to see the view. God's going to have a vision. And it was so cloudy, I couldn't see the hand in front of my face. And that's it. That's exactly where we are right now. We literally prayed, and about 15 minutes later, all the clouds and the fog kind of disappeared. I'm like, all right, well, trusting God was the theme for me spiritually. But she nudges me in the right way at the right times. And you have to do this, and here's why. But at the same time, you got to let it go.
Did you ever go through that period with, you talk about your faith, is this sort of, I've been trusting God, how could this happen to me? Was there ever that sort of questioning sort of thing?
No. If I have a recommendation, by the way, this was recommended by a board member, Chuck Bingachia, former CEO of Honey Baked Ham. He recommended this book to me the week of our first conference call in March. Jerry Bridges, Trusting God.
Yeah.
And even if you're not spiritual, or it's a great book to know that this is a perspective. This has been, in a sense, my morning read. I'm only halfway through. I read like 1 or 2 pages a day. It's that good. But no, speaking just again personally, my theology and philosophy is that God is good and he's in control. That's my personal belief. So I never question God. I mean, I know how stories work, and I know that there's narrative arcs, and the more challenging the struggle, the better the triumph. And whether we survive or not, it's not my story to write. I'm not the hero of the story, and but I get to be part of it.
I love it. So when you finally resize Booster, and you look out, like what numbers have you put yourself in, a sort of a cash sort of neutral or cash positive position?
Kind of.
Okay.
So good news is we had to go down to 140 team members. We're back up to about 340.
Oh,
so
okay.
We've hired 200 people in the last 30 days. So that's good.
That's pretty
and we
amazing.
just have to match demand. Every state in the country is totally different with what they want. We've created service levels, innovation. I mean, we've innovated like crazy. Long-term, this will definitely be good for us on every front. Clients, culture, and cash will all be improved because of the crisis. Not in the moment. It's terrible. I don't know if we can get through it. Will we survive? But yes, we're reworking the business model. We're cutting unnecessary costs. The best leaders are rising to the surface. Our clients, because we cared for them, went above and beyond, threw the kitchen sink and value at them. I feel like they'll be more loyal. I think we'll have our highest retention of all time. And then when the market opens, and competition will not do as well, when the market opens, we think we think, as an optimistic entrepreneur, I think in 18 months, we'll be back better than we were, maybe even sooner.
I think that's going to be proved. I think that this is that rebuilding, which I quoted. I quoted, from Ezra there. I really do believe that it's a supernatural event. Those people that stick together, those 140, that's that core that you rebuild to something bigger and better. It's sort of a supernatural sort of result that happens because of the belief of those people in what's happening. So.
But Charlie, I got another $4 million line of credit extension yesterday, just in case flu season and COVID season or whatever it's called shut down schools again. We're not out of it.
Last question, brother.
This could be a different interview 60 days from now.
Last question for you. What was the biggest lesson you learned in this crisis, and how did it change you as a leader?
Man, so many lessons. I could break them into categories in so many different ways. I mean, trusting God is number one. When I'm 90 years old, telling my grandkids about 2020, the chapter of the book would be trusting God. That's it. We've even called this volume 2. There's volume 1 was the first 18 years of Booster. This isn't even a chapter. I literally have printed up volume 2 books with our logo on it. Like, this is your note. This is volume 2. It's a whole different volume. It's not a new chapter. It's a whole different deal. So to me, how did it change you as a leader? It allowed me to remind myself, as I've in many ways delegated lots of functions of the business, that I can't keep my eye off some key functions. I need to know our key partners. I need to know our cash balances. I need to know exactly how we retain clients. I don't have to do it all, but I can't get, and as a founder, I built the majority of it, so I get it all. But so many incredible team members are way better than me at pretty much every category of the business right now. But at the same time, I need to not do their job better than them. I never can, but I need to understand how their job connects with the whole. Because at the end of the day, I'm the one that has to make the call based on all these different data points. And sometimes you got to make it very quickly. And the data is never clear in big decisions.
I think that's something that happens to all of us. I know it happened to me, is as you're riding a wave of success and you're growing, you get further and further away from, in some cases, the customer, and in many cases, even what's going on the ground, right? So that's a great lesson to learn as a leader, that there are keys, that there are key areas that you do have to stay pretty close to, even though you're not personally responsible for running the area.
I also used it, and I'm still using it as an example. I tell the entrepreneurial story. I talk about being an entrepreneur, but if you started right now or a year ago, and we're in 18, in 50 states, and 70 million, 80 million of revenue, and it doesn't feel as entrepreneurial as it does in my mind. So I've used this as an opportunity to reinvigorate the entrepreneurial spirit. And that's not for everybody. There have been some team members that they don't think that way. And we've said that this is not the season for you, because we are in startup mode right now.
That's a shock.
You can get off the boat if you're not in startup mode, but you gotta learn it and get in it, at least for the next 18 months.
And that's a shock to the team members, because you were at a different stage and now you're ratcheting back to this entrepreneurial stage. So Chris, I know there's a lot of questions out there people want to ask. So I want to thank you for investing in our community. You know, I want to have you back so that you can actually tell the rest of the story maybe a year from now. And I know it's going to be, you know, you're going to hit those goals and it's going to be big. It's going to be really big. It's going to be this supernatural event that takes place. You're going to be in the middle of it. So God bless you, brother, for doing this. My takeaway that I loved for today was I love that getting it down simply to cash, culture, and clients. Okay. Having those three, I could focus on that. I didn't have to focus on 1,000 things. Cash, culture, and clients drove the entire strategy, and those decisions that I needed, those 10 big decisions I needed to make that I thought I was going to make in 10 years, I had to make them in 10 days. You did it just like that Airbnb CEO. But I know that you other people here have an insight too. You know, share it with me and I'll share it with everybody when they do the summary on Friday. I'll give you credit for it. You know, and so we're learning here. Watch your cash. It goes out fast, real fast, and it comes in slow. So learn fast, decide fast, and go fast. Next week's Zoom chat, it's not next week. In fact, it's November 4th. I'm taking a couple of weeks off. We are taking off for Venture Atlanta, which is next week. And I'm taking an extra week off just for me. But my guest on November 4th is going to be John Hanger, who's the co-founder and CEO of Contact at Once. And his topic is getting to the quick 9-year exit, which is going to be pretty interesting in what he's been through. But share this weekly Zoom call with your peers. You know, I'd love to have them join you and me. And so we grow this community. And sign in a little early. We're always here 15 minutes early. We kind of catch up with each other. Thanks for attending. Now I'm going to turn this over to John Marshall, who is going to facilitate or moderate, I should say, the Q&A. John, thanks for being our moderator. At 10 o'clock, we'll cut it off. John, it's all yours.
All right. Thank you, Troy. And thank you, Chris, very much. That's great. Chris, Bob Kramer has a question on governance in your business. Go ahead, Bob.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Great presentation. Really, really interesting. Appreciate you sharing it. Charlie said that you own the business 100%. You also said you had up to 850 employees at one point. But you seem to allude that you just have an advisory board. I have a two-part question. One, if that is the case, why don't you have a real board of directors? And number two, did you consider raising outside funding like the example Charlie shared about Airbnb going out to secure funding to make sure they got through this rough patch? If you do own 100% of the company, why didn't you go out and raise some money so that you maybe could have kept more of your team in place? Thank you.
Those are great questions. Thank you. I'll go quickly. Because I'm betting on the future and the rebuild, I didn't want to give up any equity. I'm the optimist, and I did consider it. I had many conversations with many people. I had a whole whiteboard full of liquidity options, and I would re-rank them daily for about 90 days. One's equity, one's tied to warrants, one's debt with no personal guarantee, one's high interest debt. Our bank gave us an extra $3 million that helped us a lot. Because I'm personally guaranteeing everything, I didn't want to go too far into debt and create a spiral. So I haven't shared this with too many people, but March the 16th, I called my attorney and I said, put my house and my bank account in my wife's name in case this thing doesn't go well. I'll take the debt in the company But we just knew we had to cut costs, and ultimately I didn't want to be 10 million in debt with a $3 million company and the market still shut down. I mean, the fear and it's still going on, but the unknown was so great. So I basically said, we're not going into debt. We had saved up 12 million in cash, very conservative, awesome CFO. And I said, we got the 12 million in cash. We have a line of credit, but we use our line of credit for growth capital for business operations, not just to hang on to an unknown future because we're unwilling to make tough choices. So we got to resize this thing because it's my name on the line of credit, 100%. So I got the upside, but I also got the downside, and no one else does. So that's one. Two, there might be a day, Bob. I've had that question asked multiple times, and I know Chick-fil-A in recent years went to a actual fiduciary board of directors. As an entrepreneur, I want all the advice I can get, but I don't want to have to follow it if I don't feel like it's right for the company, at least in the current moment. That might change over time. And I think our board is spectacular, and I listen to everything they say. I don't take all of it. I take the majority of it, but just personal preference as an entrepreneur. I know what the dorm room felt like, and I know the last 18 years, and it's really tough to bring in outsiders as good as they are to give them the full, scope of the last 18 years, and then to have to answer to them versus want to heed their advice.
Good.
Personal preference.
Gotcha. Well, I have some further questions, but I'll be quiet and let other people.
Can you email me, Bob, or call me? Do you have my number? I'll give you all my number in a second.
Right. Thank you.
All right, yeah, thank you very much, Bob, for that question, and Chris. Andy Borgman had a question about you and your relationship with your COO.
Yep.
Hey, Chris.
He's probably.
Hey.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I wanted to offer first a word of encouragement. You probably don't remember me. I interviewed with you all back in 2012. You guys have the distinction in my life of being the only interview I've ever done where I didn't get the job. But you also have a distinction in that I've been a huge fan of you guys ever since I went in that building and saw your amazing culture and saw everything about your all's organization. And I knew Steven more than I knew you. And I still to this day keep a list of people I come in contact with over the years that I hope that I can one day work with or pull into my own company or whatever. And Steven's been on that list since 2012. And so I just want to say too, that I watched the unfortunate firings or letting goes or whatever you all probably called them from LinkedIn and from Steven's kind of interaction. And I was amazed. I mean, I'm truly, truly impressed. I wish I had the experience of that culture in the good times that I was seeing that you all had in the bad times. It was honestly inspiring just to sort of see his interaction with the people that you knew. I've had to unfortunately let go a lot of people in my life, and just I knew those hard conversations.
Thank you.
My question is going to be is how did you and Steven's relationship change in this? Because you all been through a lot.
Yep.
And I'm sure it's like a marriage in a lot of ways, and I'm sure that could either prove it to be amazing or challenge you. How did that change? Because that's an important relationship in your life.
Yeah, it's the second most important relationship in my life. I mean, marriage is one, and then of course, relationship with kids flow out of it. But thank you, Andy, for those comments. It's totally true. I mean, every entrepreneur goes through numerous right-hand men or COOs. Probably, I've met very few that have the same one that started with them, and I'm no exception to that. I hired Steven as a 21-year-old who was about to go into the Navy SEALs. Thank goodness for me, he had a knee injury that prevented him from soccer. He is the best, in my opinion, executive I've ever met. I mean, I would not trade him for anybody at any company anywhere. He knows that. He's the best. We are 100% aligned in virtues, vision, values, and we are about as complementary in all the strategies and tactics. And I just feel like God provided me not only a incredible friend, but business partner, and a marriage is exactly what it feels like for those of you that are at that stage, in a good way. I mean, I want to honor and trust and listen to and care for and be better together. I think the accretive nature of 1 + 1 is 3. If you ever find that person and not everybody does. I'm just extremely blessed. And everything you said about him is right. So, I mean, our wives are great friends. I mean, this doesn't have to be the case for everybody, but we go to sports games and concerts, and we kind of doubled down on all that in the season, because we were the only two that were like, is everybody aware of all that we feel and all that we're going to?
Yeah.
I mean, he was over for dinner every other night. His wives and kids are hanging out in the pool. We're like, this was just kind of all consuming for a long time. So our relationship that was great got even stronger.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you very much. Great, Chris, we thank you very much. You answered all the questions. And so I want to thank you very much for your time. And Charlie, great Zoom.
Hey, Charlie, I got one more 30-second story you'll like. I forgot to mention it earlier. Somewhere in that 30 days, when our spring was in the past and our fall that we thought was going to be good was a disaster, there was a week where not Steven, but a couple others on our executive team just weren't quite they weren't looking ahead enough. They weren't seeing what was about to happen. They couldn't look, and it wasn't their job to, but it's my job to try to look to the future. And I finally, after a couple suggestions that were like, from my opinion, guys, things aren't great and you're not getting it, I slammed my hand on the desk. I smiled. I said, guys, this is the owner talking. You're all fired, including me. Okay. This isn't the CEO. This is the owner. Every bet we've made's been wrong. So everybody's fired. Go take 20 minutes. Go walk around the building. Go to the bathroom. Call your wife. You're rehired in 20 minutes when you come back in this room if you want to be here and if you have an entrepreneurial mindset. And I just needed to get everybody's attention. I need to get my own attention. Everybody came back in, and I looked at my CFO and I said, how much cash do we have? How much are we burning a day? How many days does that give us? Guys, we got 62 days. That's it. Because I've already told you I'm not going into debt. It's me. I'm not going 25, 10, with no market open. So I think that was a moment that everyone realized, oh, wow, I needed to shake it up. We were having conversation.
I love that story.
So
I love that story. I remember there was a guy that I worked for when I was a young general manager, and he was my mentor. His name was Jim Porter, and I talk about him a lot. But he once told me a story. He said, when he was working in New York, he said there was a CEO that rented an office that was across the street from his office, so he could look from one office into his office, and he would ask himself the question, when he went to that office, if I was that CEO, what would I do for that business? So to separate yourself like you did as an owner, which is really cool. I had one last question. We do have like a minute here. Is what was the high point in this crisis? What comes out of it that you look back and you go, man, that was just incredible?
Gosh, there's been so many. There's been really a lot of high points. A lot of fear, a lot of moments I thought I could lose it all. And again, I still could. In 60 days, the world shuts down again. We don't get to January, February. We have enough cash to get to February right now. High point. Seeing our first client come back and confirm for the fall, and a couple schools start to open. We literally hung a gong. If anybody follows me on Instagram, and we said, you know what? We couldn't do this when we had 5,000 clients, but we're going to celebrate every single client like I used to. Steven's idea. So we got a gong, and every morning at 9 a.m. when we know the numbers of clients we've added for the fall since yesterday, we bang the gong and a different person gets to do it. And so even in crazy moments, we're going to celebrate. So just even more client-centric. We don't take anything for granted. Wow, we have a client. We have the opportunity to serve clients, make a difference, and work with great people.
Chris, that was fantastic. John Marshall, thank you for moderating for us and helping me out so much, making this so seamless. And thank you all for attending. And Chris, you're incredible. You did share some very difficult circumstances here with us, and you really helped a lot of entrepreneurs. So God bless you. Godspeed, brother, and to you, your team, your marriage, everything. You're going to be a big hit. I can't wait to see what our next conversation is going to look like when we do the Zoom chat for entrepreneurs. Thank you all. Have a good day.
Thanks,
Take
Charlie.
care.
Thank you, guys. God bless you.